A very warm welcome. As we grapple with the devastating effects of COVID pandemic, it is tragic to note the 5 million deaths globally. It is also tragic that as many as 5 million die each year owing to climate change. This is the pressing and existential crisis that our planet is faced with. I would like to quote His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa's recent address to the UN. As devastating as the consequences of the pandemic have been to humanity, the world faces an even greater challenge of climate change in the decades to come. Addressing the grave threats posed by climate change and the loss of biodiversity requires decisive and urgent multilateral action. As a climate vulnerable country, Sri Lanka is deeply aware of the dangers of climate change. The words of His Excellency. Faced with this crisis, it is heartening to note that it is businesses, corporates, and CEOs leading the charge. Harvard Business Review and Forbes have referred to the rise of the CEO activist. This activism and drive is particularly true for IT companies such as IBM, Apple, Google, Microsoft, HP, and SAP. Our industry, which aims to be the biggest exporter for Sri Lanka, is blessed with some of the most educated, passionate, and innovative professionals in the world, with some of the most innovative startups. Could we aim to lead in environmental, social, and governance? And not just in Sri Lanka, but lead internationally, be known as the first green IT destination in the planet. Could Sri Lanka's IT BPM industry be renowned, not just for innovation talent, but also for responsible, principled business and lead in climate, in diversity, in inclusivity, indeed in tech for good? I would like to end with this quote from Greta Thunberg: hope is not passive. Hope is not blah, blah, blah. Hope is telling the truth. Hope is taking action. When we look back, let it be said of us that the Sri Lanka IT BPM industry took action. We heard the truth and we took action. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to Jehan and for his eloquent and, if I'm allowed to say, that fearsome entry. It put perspective into the whole thing of the dangers of climate change, and quoted President Gotabaya Rajapaksa also on what he recently said about the whole thing. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the SLASSCOM Leadership Forum, where we will be discussing as to why ESG is a critical business imperative, its sustainable strategies, and how Sri Lanka can position and brand itself to face what is coming up. Jehan has done justice to his opening 5 minutes in telling us what this is all about. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the first speaker for the day. And the first speaker who would be talking to us today is Ms. Hanaa Singer-Hamdy. She is the United Nations United Nations Resident Coordinator in Sri Lanka, and leads the UN country team of 22 resident and non-resident UN agencies. She is the representative of the UN Secretary General in Sri Lanka. She has close to 3 decades of experience with the UN, working across development and humanitarian contexts at various senior management and strategic leadership roles. She has held several senior leadership positions in UNICEF across the world, including the Associate Regional Director for UNICEF Geneva, Country Representative for UNICEF Syria, Nepal, Kazakhstan, and Azerbaijan. She holds a master's degree in political sociology and a bachelor's degree in political science from the American University of Cairo, Egypt. She has engaged in academia and research in political sociology and international relations at the American University of Cairo and at the Sadat Academy for Management Sciences, Faculty of Political Sciences of Cairo University. She is the author and co-author of 2 publications on social change in the Middle East. I'd like to invite Ms. Hanaa Singer-Hamdy to take over the virtual stage of this SLASSCOM Leadership Forum and share her views with us upfront.
Thank you very much, Ajmal, and I support and endorse your opinion about Jehan's forceful and eloquent presentation, and I'm really pleased to follow him in addressing this fantastic group of people. So good afternoon, everyone from the Sri Lankan Association for Software and Service Companies and my colleagues from the UN. What a fantastic opportunity to be addressing this forum, comprising really of the leaders from the IT and the business process management industry. The UN in Sri Lanka is pleased and honored, I would even say, to work with all of you to develop an industry-wide sustainability strategy, and the leadership taken by the SLASSCOM in pursuing this initiative is really truly commendable. Thank you very much on that. Colleagues, the world today faces numerous challenges as noted by the Secretary General at the General Assembly last week. We need urgent action to secure peace, to address climate change, to address inequality, to bridge the digital divide, to address gender inequality, and to ensure a brighter future for the younger generation. Many of you in this industry are working to address these issues already, but we need your efforts more than ever to innovate and or to continue innovations on green technologies that will safeguard our planet. And we really need to not only safeguard, I think we need to save our planet. So we need your innovative green technologies, safeguard our planet, to address gender inequality in your field, to provide employment opportunity for young people, and most significantly is to address the digital divide that is now clearer than ever, this divide. Now, as the Secretary General noted, half of humanity has no access to internet, but we must connect everyone by 2030 and embrace the promise of digital technology while protecting people from its perils. Our common framework for addressing these challenges are the 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals, and we need a whole of society approach, including the private sector, to play this part. And I just had a meeting with the government, actually the UN just had a meeting with the government just yesterday when we were discussing our next 5 years plan. And we, I think, all ensured, both from the UN and from the government, the critical importance to build this alliance with the private and the corporate sector. Now, colleagues, the SDGs provide, that's the beauty of the SDGs. It provides a framework to align the core activities and competencies of specific businesses, of a group of companies or industry-wide coalition, such as, of course, SLASSCOM. Therefore, across the United Nations system, there is a renewed emphasis on partnering with responsible businesses to deliver sustainable development on the ground. As noted in the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, we want to work with businesses to apply your creativity and innovations towards solving the sustainable development challenges. With this regards, we have seen significant progress since the creation of the UN Global Compact in 2000 and the unanimous endorsement of the UN Guiding Principle on Business and Human Rights by the UN Human Rights Council in 2011. Therefore, this afternoon, I would like to touch on the challenges and opportunities presented by the 2030 Agenda and the SDG for the corporate sector. So let me give you 3 areas where the SDGs could provide businesses with opportunities for growth. First, we all recognize that businesses don't operate in a vacuum. Business success and development success are not mutually exclusive. For instance, the majority of companies benefiting from operating in healthy, thriving society with effective infrastructure and good governance and predictable policy environment. A more concrete example is that investment in education and health system result in a healthy and skilled workforce. And I always like to remember one of my gurus in economic development, when he used to talk to government to say, if you want to be rich in the future, you have to invest now. So this is the first point. The second point, the SDG provides a framework for business to engage in ethical business practices. Today, all employees, customers, and wider stakeholders believe that businesses have a legitimate and important role to play in tackling the wider social, economic, and environmental challenges. Therefore, for businesses, engaging in development challenges is an important way to build trust and reputation, stakeholder reputation, strategic market positioning, and license to operate. Now, a relevant and well-known example, as you know, I used to work in UNICEF before, but here also, we have an excellent example when H&M, working with UNICEF, set up a program with the state government in Tamil Nadu to prevent parents from sending children to work in the cotton fields and to give victims of children or child labor access to education and to educate the community on the importance of sending children to school. And this is really an example that I myself saw in lots of countries. So third is a commitment to finding solutions to SDG challenges can provide businesses with opportunities for growth and innovation. For example, by providing low-income, previously underserved communities with access to affordable quality products and services around health, education, water and sanitation, energy and finance. These are just some of the ways in which businesses can engage with development challenges and the SDGs to create new opportunities for growth. So what now? Engagement with the SDG is not without challenges. While recognizing these challenges, I look forward to discussing with you in various forums new ideas of how we can overcome these issues and transform challenges into growth and opportunities. So first, there certainly exists, and I like this very much, the idea of this. There exists a language barrier between development community and the corporate sector. I always tell my colleagues sometimes if anybody from the corporate sector is sitting in a UN meeting, they will think that we're talking a different language. So we both have a set of jargon that is unique for us, and therefore addressing development challenges from a business perspective and realizing the SDGs can be sometimes quite challenging. However, initiatives again, like the Global Compact, has provided us with a conduit to translate from one industry to another our shared goals. By a more effective branding of the SDGs, we may be able to align them closely with specific company core competencies and interests. Second, for businesses, there is a significant challenge when measuring the social and environmental impact of their activities. We know the famous quote by Peter Drucker when he says, "What gets measured gets managed." However, the ability of businesses to measure associated development outcomes, both the positive and negative, are not part of core business functions. For instance, measuring development outcomes for very large populations. So in order to address these issues, we see initiatives like the SDG Compass, which provides guidance for companies on how they can align their strategies, as well as to measure and manage their contribution to the realization of the SDGs. Okay, now the third challenge, for those businesses that want to work for the UN, with the UN and the wider development community, it's not always clear about how to go about this practically. So many UN agencies, so many different missions. So in these instances, I'm very pleased to offer, especially with regards to the UN reform that started 2 years ago, the Office of the Resident Coordinator plays then and can play an important role in supporting business engagement, in tackling system or policy level constraints, and facilitate collaboration between the different agencies and even between the different government counterparts to deliver the SDGs. We are positioned to help identify systematic level issues, to advise on where the platforms already exist, to tackle them, and where new platforms are needed, to ensure that resources are harnessed in the most effective route without duplication. So in this regard, I'm very glad to be partnering with all of you from the IT and the business process management industry, the sector in which Sri Lanka's fourth largest exporter with over 500 companies and a workforce of 115,000. Wow. So it's really an honor. It's not only I'm pleased, I am honored to be partnering with you on that. So I look forward for furthering our relationship and looking for solutions to development challenges. In closing, I'd like to reiterate the UN commitments in working very closely with the fantastic leadership of SLASSCOM. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much for that beautiful and passionate view from your perspective, Ms. Hanaa Singer-Hamdy. I think you've emphasized the fact that you're very passionate about this thing, and your speech and the power of your voice definitely reflects the same opinion without any doubt. Speaking on various things, and you started off by saying urgent actions are needed by everyone in this planet than ever before, particularly both by the private and public sector. Spoke on the challenges of the 2030 agenda, particular examples like the Tamil Nadu movement across, and other examples across the world in getting quality education to children. Couldn't have put it any better. SDGs come with challenges. It's about living up to those challenges and fighting them and making it a reality to make it happen. So you've got to measure the and also particular challenges like measuring outcomes for larger populations and how corporates can align themselves and their strategies to stick to this UN goal and make the world a better place, if I'm allowed to say that. Thank you very much, Ms. Hanaa Singer-Hamdy. You've shown your passion towards the subject by your words, but also not only by your words, but also by your beautiful energy that you put in to express your views. It's been a pleasure listening to you. Up next, I'm going to go ahead and bring up our keynote speaker who would be speaking to us today. He is none other than Tristan. He is joining us for the particular keynote in this session discussing around SDGs. Tristan Haberley is joining us from the Asia Pacific SAP President's Office. He works there as a fellow based in Singapore. His remit includes driving the sustainability go-to-market across the region, supporting enablement both internally and externally for customers, partners, and the larger ecosystem. I'm going to invite Tristan Haberley to take the virtual stage and deliver the keynote for today's session. Over to you, Tristan.
Thank you, Ajmal, for the introduction, and thank you to SLASSCOM members and everyone on the call joining us today for the opportunity to be here. Very much a privilege and honor, so thank you. Also, thank you to Hanaa for the fantastic introduction and overview of the Sustainable Development Goals. Something quite very literally close to my heart if I get the right side with my 17 UN SDGs on my lapel pin, but also something close to SAP's heart as well. Being very involved with this, and I think the way you describe it as a framework for tackling some of these challenges is absolutely the right way to encapsulate that. I think even as recently as last year, working with the United Nations and Accenture as well to release the SDG ambition guides. So I think it's such a phenomenal framework, and certainly something that's a part of almost every conversation inside our businesses and how we engage with customers as well for this topic. With that, so in preparing for today, I had a sort of a moment reflection as well around sustainability and the role of sustainability, ESG, however we might want to term it. But kind of within my career context, it's feeling like it's on the sidelines. If I go back to my studies, commerce and postgrad studies around sustainability, then even jumping full time into my first role, which is working for a startup. And we were building a sustainability app. So it was very much front and center of our vision, aspiration, but bringing that to market all that time ago faced a number of challenges. I then think about my steps through my commercial career, working in supply chain and resources sectors and other. And while sustainability, ESG, and the related topics have always been in the conversation, typically I've been to the side of the conversation, driven through health, safety, and environment, perhaps through a sustainability officer or team if they existed, or CSR. Even joining SAP a number of years ago, whilst an organization very much purpose-driven with sustainability within its values, the role of sustainability in the conversations we are having with customers and internally is very different to what it is today. And that's what I want to bring to the conversation today. Share some very real-time sentiment around the conversations that are happening with customers in this region, obviously in a very relevant industry, a likened industry, technology. So that's what I want to bring to the table today, share where the conversation's at, and I think in there, try to be able to connect the dots on the opportunities that exist now and what they look like as they further transpire. So with that, let's jump in. So I think the opportunity in addressing and tackling climate change, we had a great introduction from Jehan, which I think was very compelling and a motive there. So I won't go back to sort of the impetus for drastic, rapid change. But this existential threat also presents a sense of urgency, a sense of real desire to make decisions in a timely manner, to affect change in a timely manner, and with that, business opportunities as well. This quote from Richard Branson, I think, is a great way to sort of capture the essence. Business is essential to solving the climate crisis because this is what business is best at: innovating, changing, addressing risks, and searching for opportunities. And I think this is absolutely true. And this isn't just the global conglomerates, the multinational corporations. This is every business size, startups, through partners, through. I can share a recent example as well. At SAP at the moment, we've launched and we've just closed the selection day for our first sustainability cohort within SAP.io. This is where we invite startups from all elements of the ecosystem right across Asia Pacific, Japan. But in this context, it was to solve specifically the sustainability problems and the challenges that our customers have to face. The intention here with the startups that are selected is to help accelerate their businesses, ultimately integrating with SAP and helping their businesses scale. Important for their own business of any size, but also important for our customers and the wider ecosystem. There are no shortages of problems to solve in this space. This is an all hands in approach, and within that, an abundance of opportunities. If I think about the many different problems to solve, it's going to be related to different domain topics. If I think about living in Singapore, so over 90% of our food is imported. Being conscious of the implications that I try to make conscious choices wherever I can when I go to the supermarket, but it's not always easy. An apple, for example, I'm going to have a number of choices, and ultimately there's a price point that there's an environmental footprint associated with that apple, that's going to consider that with 90% of the food imported, it's going to typically be guaranteed in an apple's context to be imported. What does that footprint look like? How far has it traveled? What was the storage methods and what was the storage period? This is for one apple in one supermarket in one country. One problem to be solved at scale. One of many problems, as example, to be solved at scale for this topic. With that, the role of technology is enabler, there is an abundance. And I look forward to further discussing what that looks like, the conversations we're having with customers, and ultimately opportunities for the technology sector as well to leverage and not only embrace the opportunities for their businesses now, but anticipate and support the needs that customers have. So if we look at how I want to describe the digital transformation, and the SAP's 50th birthday next year as well. So we've been in this game for quite some time, but you can see if we break down some of the key elements of that transformation, going back to probably what we're best known for. If anyone's interacted with an SAP screen, it may be the wonderful blue GUI or some other colors over time, but ERP, data, business processes, the robustness and security, those end-to-end processes, and supply chain management. Through that, it supported the industrialization and the vertical integration, which has helped businesses continue to grow and scale. Of course, in 2021, we do support all size businesses, but at the core of that was those core business processes. That evolution then to support globalization, to support global supply chains, the agility that was required, overlaying networks, and broadly speaking, the digitization of these topics. We can see during COVID, during the pandemic, the fragility of supply chains, and hence the response and continued investment to bolster supply chains as well within this digitization framework. And the way I think we can view these as foundations, each building on each, to where we are now with sustainable business, which is the new frontier in digital transformation, the intelligent enterprise through sustainable business, where in our very globalized world, with localized challenges, the sustainability and climate risk and waste topics that we address, the ability to leverage the intelligent enterprise to support that impact. But then if we think about, and I shared sort of my journey on reflections over my own career, sustainability in the sideline, what's rapidly changed is sustainability being a front of mind topic and ESG being a front of mind topic for CEOs in almost every organization. In speaking with the president, this number has even grown in my time, 60, 70, 80, and Tristan, this is 100% of the conversations that we have with customers. What is our sustainability response, and how can we support our customers? Why is it front of mind for CEOs? One part is investors. So 34% of growth in global sustainable investments, has grown 34% between 2016 and 2018. And we also know on the other side, on the investment coin, that investment and financing is getting more challenging for certain ESG criteria not met. It's critical for CEOs to have access to their operating capital. So making sure their businesses are aligned with ESG values of the investors out there and the financing out there is critical. We know that there's a rapidly changing regulatory environment when it comes to the expected compliance, whether it be at country level, perhaps there's industry standards, and we can even look at a regional level if you consider the EU as example. We know consumer sentiment continues to change and expect more and more when it comes to zero waste. And I've shared my example of the apple, for example, the carbon footprint and the negative externalities associated with the purchasing decision. And when consumers have choice, they'll be driving and selecting the products that support their values. And finally, employees. CEOs know, and leadership know that employees are looking for more. In fact, the millennials and Gen Z This is the #1 concern when choosing the employer they want to work for or the companies that they may interact with as well. If we take that one step below, now I appreciate there's going to be a very diverse array of organizations on this call, and perhaps the industries that you typically interact with, but within that, you're typically going to have stakeholders. For SAP, for example, typically HR, finance, manufacturing, CPOs and of course IT for the nature of the solution sets that we serve. But with sustainability part of the agenda, we're seeing this agenda being led by the CEOs. We're also seeing chief sustainability officers coming into these conversations. And what we are seeing as part of the recipe for success in helping have these conversations progress and drive is that we need multi-stakeholders representing different verticals coming into these conversations. They all have different needs to be served or different particular agendas as it relates broadly to sustainability. Being able to connect them in a technology context as an enabler is a huge opportunity. And I think there's a real opportunity as well for the role of vendors in the technology space to help be that connector, where there's an opportunity for technology to help drive the ESG agendas, which is absolutely a top of mind, front of mind, critical business issue for these leaders. If I think about the needs and the priorities in stepping through this, it's absolutely the foundation is compliance. So it's meeting the obligations. Consider the license to operate. These are the requirements that may exist now, or the ones that are being preempted. This means robust data that is going to support the reporting requirements that may be now or coming, and having the flex to support that. This is the base. And then beyond that, the processes and the efficiencies that can come from building that. And of course, the opportunity here is for sustainability to be profitable and profitability sustainable. And beyond the meeting the obligations to the efficiencies that come in this changing business world around meeting these sustainability obligations, the opportunity for new products, new services, and evolving business models. If we think about circular economy, these different systems are going to evolve out of, there's going to be significant roles and opportunities for technology to be supporting in different elements of that value chain in customers' digital transformation journeys, ultimately tackling challenges around moral imperative to address waste challenges, emissions challenges, but at the end of the day, driving the business issue to make sustainability profitable and profitability sustainable. There can be a win-win in this scenario through the value creation that comes from the sustainability agenda. These are the foundations and the building blocks to help achieve that roadmap. It would be remiss of me not to share an SAP slide as well, where it sort of talks about sustainability, and I'm not going to talk about products, do not worry, but I do want to reference the types of conversations we're having with customers. You may find some elements in this as well that could be useful when engaging with your customers as well. So for us, the vision, the aspiration is a world of zero. So we are chasing zero emissions, zero waste, and zero inequality for a sustainable future. We link it to our purpose to help the world better and improve people's lives. And sustainability is about creating positive economic, environmental, social impact within planetary boundaries. But then we talk about two parts. We talk about the role of technology as enabler. This is what we should be familiar with. The notion of products and services can help meet these challenges. And what we can see is the growing number of challenges related to sustainability challenges where technology can be and absolutely will be an enabler. But on the other part of this conversation is the role as an exemplar. And this is where the conversation really gets interesting, because it's where we can talk about a shared journey. We can talk about, as an organization, our journey towards carbon neutrality, which we plan to achieve by 2023. It may be phasing out single-use plastics. It may be our own diversity and inclusion programs, social procurement, social entrepreneurship in the organization, or even our own journey to integrated reporting, or a number of the partnerships we might have to find commonalities in this sustainability topic. Within that, of course, as a product company, we may then and would likely talk about how we may be able to help with our solutions as an enabler, but this is not the conversation that's leading in this context. We, of course, have our own solutions, but as I've referred to, and I want to continue to reinforce, partners are such a key role of this. The role of startups in industry and customer co-innovation is more and more prevalent in the conversations related to this, which I think is really interesting. And I think a real opportunity as well for organizations such as yourselves with considering the engagements with customers. And of course, being always able to refer back to our own ethical business practices and the corporate citizen that we like to be, and our reference to the Sustainable Development Goals, where we believe and we demonstrate we can make the most impact. And sort of rounding out, I'm not here to talk about strategy, but what I want to do reinforce is that this is table stakes for SAP as well. And it's table stakes because it's defined our strategy in response to what we can appreciate as externalities, but what our customers are coming to us for, what our partners are coming to us for. And it's not for all the solutions, it's for a collaborative approach to drive these outcomes. So you can see here within our strategy and in our vision of the intelligent enterprise, sustainability management is absolutely embedded. Do we have all the answers today? No. Are we going to continue building and collaborating and working strongly, partnering to achieve the outcomes and realize a vision for a world that has zero waste, zero emissions, and zero inequality? Absolutely. And I think it's such a privilege to see that it's a consistent word, but the collaboration in this space, and it gives me absolute hope that this topic can be addressed through technology, through these partnerships, which will not only be good for planet, but also good for business. So with that, I would like to thank you for your time today. If I was to sort of share again some key takeaways, it would be that this is a top of mind topic for all our customers, looking at their own operations when it comes to sustainability, the expectations of those own internal stakeholders and shareholders, but also thinking about how they ready their businesses and seize the opportunities that are out there as their own customers look to answer the same questions. So I wish you all well on your journey to be a part of this. There's so much happening in this space. It's such an exciting time. There's no shortage of work to be done, and we need a sense of urgency to achieve this, but I have high hopes. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tristan, Haberley, for your beautiful but insightful views as well, particularly on the areas for digital transformation, for sustainable value creation, and also the interesting segment on chasing zero to create a sustainable future, which is, of course, relevant to everyone. Like you summed up at the end, it is everybody's business, I think, very interestingly for corporates, but beyond that as well, every human being's affair to take care of. Thank you very much, Tristan, for those beautiful words, and your opinion on the whole subject matter is highly valued and appreciated at this forum. Up next, I'm going to bring on our next speaker, who is actually the chairman of SLASSCOM herself. She is none other than Sandra de Zoysa. We are delighted to present the chairperson, Sandra, to share her vision on ESG for Sri Lanka's industry. A little bit about Sandra is that she serves as the Group Chief Customer Officer at Dialog. She's the chairperson for Digital Customer Experience Group for Axiata Berhad and the director of Dialog Business Services. She is a founding board member of the Women's Chamber for Digital. Her career in the ICT industry spans over 3 decades. Sandra joined SLASSCOM in 2008 and has held the longest tenure as Vice Chairperson, Finance and Operations Director, led Women's Technopreneur Quality, Branding and Communications, and the Tech Kids initiatives. She is the recipient of multiple global awards for thought leadership and the contribution in the sphere of customer experience and women in leadership. Sandra is also a visiting lecturer at the University of Colombo School of Computing and is an avid global speaker being present at more than 200 global events. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Sandra Zoysa.
Thank you, Ajmal, for that extended intro for me. And I know that comes from the fact that you work on my team and you know all this, much to my embarrassment. But ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you, Hanaa, UN Resident Coordinator, for outlining the global challenges we are facing today and how and why businesses should be an integral part of the movement to address them. In an interdependent world, common challenges are impacting and will continue to impact all of us. It is also clear that we can only overcome these challenges together in a whole of society kind of approach. Thanks also to Tristan, fellow at the Office of the President, Asia Pacific and Japan Strategic Programs of SAP, for underscoring how innovation and sustainability together drive the global software and BPM industry. It's really encouraging listening to you. And we see we have a long journey ahead, but we're very encouraged by your presence here today to help our leaders understand why and how they should be leading into the future. So what I want to talk to you about today is about 21st century leadership and about readiness. So are we really future ready is the question that I have. And clearly, I think all of you will agree with me. The answer is no. And all of us have a lot of work to get done. But today is a good day because we have over 100 participants here from the IT BPM leadership with us, which clearly indicates that everyone's interested in our industry to make sure that we take the lead to help our country move forward and find every possible way of protecting our planet, protecting our country, and a good chance at survival, not just for us, but for also the generations to come. Science shows that temperatures are in record-breaking territory. Greenhouse gas emission levels are mounting, sea levels are rising, and natural disasters are becoming more frequent and destructive than ever before, like the pandemic that we are all faced with right now. All of us are acutely aware of the threats facing our planet and the future of our children. Today, we are in a code-red emergency, and we need to be acting now with an absolute sense of urgency. Very often, we approach some of these matters of urgency, and we try to kind of take it easy, but this is one of those situations that we can't afford to put away for later any longer. The climate change, even within Sri Lanka, is also an ever-growing threat to people's health, jobs, and safety. Therefore, we are very keen as a responsible association that our membership adopts the highest standards of compliance, and we do our part to make a meaningful change so that our children and our children's children, who are perhaps even unborn, will thank us for it someday. Don't forget that all this positive impact can even be witnessed during our lifetime and of course beyond. And we'll have the comfort of knowing that we did our part to save our planet, to make the world a better place for our future generations. So I would like to address all of these issues we talked of in three parts. Firstly, why is ESG such a critical business imperative? Now, Tristan has given us a story and his spiel on why this is so. I couldn't think of anything but two reasons why we feel that we need to do this. And I am looking to addressing just at least these two examples for starters, and then we can build upon it. Next, of course, is a call to action by all of us. It's about embedding sustainability in our corporate strategies. And lastly, about a solution for the industry that we can benefit from. We can all benefit from this. So does Sri Lanka actually have an opportunity to differentiate and position ourselves as a green tech destination? So that's what I would like to, try to address. So firstly, to answer the question as to why ESG is a critical business imperative, perhaps the lesser known fact is that the new European Green Deal legislation demands green credentials for all IT BPO suppliers to Europe. And with one of our key markets being the Nordics, the bad news is that we are currently non-compliant, or at least most of us are non-compliant. This means sometime soon, our customers in Europe and perhaps even other parts of the world will not want to or not be even able to do business with us anymore. This is not something that we should take lightly, at SLASSCOM. The next is, of course, the never-ending hunger for countries and industries for more data and bandwidth, which has resulted in an unintended climatic consequence. Here's the problem. Data centers account for 2% of the total energy usage of the world. In the US alone, data centers are expected to use 660 billion liters of water per year. Data centers are also responsible for approximately 2% of the greenhouse gas emissions and vast amounts of vanity material used traditionally in the server and technical infrastructure in data centers, leading to high scope 1, 2, and 3 in the emissions. That's why there is so much buzz around the emerging trend for green data centers, and the green data center market was valued at $53 billion in 2020. That's huge. And this is expected to reach a value of nearly 182 billion by 2026. 182 billion. The global data center market is estimated at 1 trillion by 2030. And the green data center market is estimated to be at 148 billion by 2040. These are huge numbers. Plus, another good point to consider would be that all of the future M&A activity will focus on green data center portfolios, and customers will be willing to pay a premium for green data center facilities. Just these alone are critical business imperatives for us to consider. As you heard Tristan say, sustainability brings profit and profits bring sustainability. So hearing from those who have started on this journey, succeeded, and has still not given up, they see so much more to do. There's so much for us to learn from. So like Jehan also mentioned before, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in his recent speech at the UN Global General Assembly mentioned that climate change and loss of biodiversity requires decisive and urgent action. We agree. And he also said that Sri Lanka has an urgent need to reduce fossil fuel and support decarbonization, focus on renewable energy such as solar, wind, and hydropower. Also stated that we, as in Sri Lanka, intends to make full use of our geostrategic location and our robust institutions, skilled workforce to attract investments. I'm sure he was thinking of SLASSCOM's Vision 2025 when he actually said that. So it's about embedding sustainability in our corporate strategies. As you saw, Tristan showed us a slide on the way SAP has done this. And here's how SLASSCOM intends to support you. I am personally committed and extremely passionate about SLASSCOM being a front runner in this ESG journey we have commenced in order to help our member companies embark on this journey with us. Vice Chairman Jehan will lead SLASSCOM's ESG initiative all the way from 2021 through to the end of his tenure as chairman in 2024, by which time our industry will be a proud front runner for the country, creating the kind of impact that we all desire. So we want all of you to start making sustainability a key priority in your corporate strategy, and we will support you all the way, starting with awareness creation on the significance of the issue, then conducting the required training in order to support you and get you off to a smooth start, minus the confusion on how to traverse through this journey, and providing guidance and support through expert mentoring from within our member companies as well as outside of our industry, since we have much to learn, especially from the apparel sector, as well as our global experts through the UN Resident Coordinator's Office and UN Global Compact Sri Lanka, all of who are already on our ESG Advisory Council and have very graciously pledged their support to help SLASSCOM member companies succeed in this great endeavor. Going forward, SLASSCOM will also aim to establish business responsibility reporting, commonly known as BRR, for the IT BPM industry, with a suggested set of matrices which are industry relevant for all of us to easily adopt and get on our journey, including the SGD compass that Hanaa talked about. Lastly, addressing the point about green tech destinations. So, does Sri Lanka really have an opportunity to differentiate the position of being a green IT destination? I'd say yes. Why? Because making Sri Lanka a sustainable IT solutions provider would be a differentiator that would fuel the growth of the industry while contributing significantly towards global and national sustainable development priorities that we all have discussed up to now and that we will continue to discuss throughout our session today. Our country's recovery must be built on a new foundation. So why not a green and sustainable economy that reduces emissions and builds resilience? Taking these pressing circumstances into account, SLASSCOM's vision for Sri Lanka to be known as a responsible provider and doing business in Sri Lanka means a positive social impact, positive environmental impact is a great proposition. Several in our industry have already adopted carbon neutral initiatives and sustainability, as you will hear from two of our member companies who will share their case studies with us in a bit. To further strengthen our IUI brand proposition, SLASSCOM is keen to see ESG become one of the key differentiators of Sri Lanka's IT BPM industry, and that Sri Lanka will be known as a green IT destination alongside our island of ingenuity branding. This will make us an absolute killer brand, unmatched by others in our region and placing us on the global map for sure. So here's the key question for today. Are we, all 21st century leaders, ready to join SLASSCOM on this journey to set ourselves and our country apart versus the competition from countries like even Philippines, India, Israel, to be number one in green tech destination? I sincerely hope that the answer is yes, a big yes, because all of us are responsible for protecting our planet, our people, and there is no longer an option to do this. It is mandatory. It is absolutely necessary that we do this. The opportunity is right here to make it happen. Starting right now, we need to act collectively to succeed. At SLASSCOM, doing things collectively is something that we are very, very familiar with. Our success at SLASSCOM has been founded by the amazing 350 plus member companies who come together to do things collectively. So here's one more that we want you to join us in. So that is the actual call to action. As leaders of the industry, we look forward to your stewardship in ensuring that as an industry, we're able to differentiate ourselves in the global marketplace as an innovative, sustainable solutions and service provider that contributes positively to society and the environment, while of course offering our exceptional value to partners. Customers are definitely going to appreciate this initiative and what we bring as a proposition from Sri Lanka. The present challenges and the present opportunities call on us to take on a transformative approach. As SLASSCOM, we are ready with your active support to make sure we are 21st century future ready. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having joined us here today. You have already taken the first step in the right direction, and we look forward to all of you joining us in this journey and helping Sri Lanka even thrive, prosper, looking to the future to make the world, to make the planet, to make Sri Lanka a better place for ourselves, if not for us, for our children, for sure. And that's such a noble cause. We ought to be playing the part. We really ought to be doing our bit, taking personal responsibility, and as leaders, as global leaders, taking on this responsibility to do what we must through the industry, through our organization, teaching our employees, especially as you heard from the previous speakers when they told us that employees look for organizations that have purpose. Employees love to work for companies that have purpose that is connected to saving our planet and protecting our people. So that's even another business imperative as to why we should get on this journey. We will have our employees rally around us. We will have our employees, appreciate and admire and, be happy to work, be part of such a wonderful aspiration, a wonderful movement, something that we can do together that's going to create so much value for the people and the planet. With that, I'd like to ask you to stay on to listen to the rest of the conversations that we have here, which have been specially curated for you. Very valuable conversations to get us on this journey. And also thank everyone that has joined us today, our speakers, our industry experts, from both here in Sri Lanka and globally. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot to SLASSCOM's chairperson, Sandra, on her beautiful views on the ESG vision for Sri Lankan industry and making Sri Lanka a green country. But spoke on various interesting and relevant topics. Thank you so very much, Sandra, for your beautiful insights. Up next, I am moving on to a discussion which is about the question, does sustainability help differentiate in the global market around the Sri Lankan apparel experience? To talk about that, I'd like to invite our next speaker, who is going to come up and take the center digital stage. He is none other than Nikhil Hirdaramani. The apparel sector has been one of the biggest successes, and what lessons can we learn from their success? To do that, we're delighted to bring on Nikhil Hirdaramani. Nikhil Hirdaramani is a director of the Hirdaramani Group with over 20 years experience in the apparel industry. Nikhil in recent years has taken responsibility for sustainability in the group, covering both key environmental and social initiatives with a strong link to the United Nations SDGs. He has been a member of the board of SEDEX and a former vice chair of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and presently sits in the council of the Social and Labor Convergence Project. Nikhil is an active member, leader of Entrepreneurs Organization, and presently leads the Global Subcommittee for External Relations, overseeing partnerships with organizations such as the United Nations, IFC, and World Economic Forum, as well as the implementation of the EO Sustainability Strategy. Over to you, Nikhil, to speak on this amazing topic that you're lined up for.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. As I say, I come in from a different industry, but I have been focusing on sustainability, or I like to define it as ESG now, because I think there was some confusion many years ago as to what sustainability meant, and I like the terminology ESG. I think it's more clear. So I've been involved in that over years, and I'm here today to really talk around the apparel industry and actually the history of the Sri Lankan apparel industry, and really specifically the Garments Without Guilt initiative. So I'm just going to share my screen. See if I can get this going. I had to find some archive footage from the Sri Lankan apparel industry. There you are. And I always like to start, I haven't used this slide for a long time, but really what I wanted to talk about today is really how the Sri Lankan apparel industry had to sort of take its own steps in being sustainable, in following the trend, and what it did. And I think Sandra was mentioning around working together in collaboration. And I think today, if we hadn't actually exercised what we'd done all those years ago, I don't think we would really be as strong as we are today in the industry. And so I always like to start with a slide because size isn't everything. And Sri Lanka, from a perspective of the apparel industry, was, we're a small country. We didn't have much fabric. We didn't have such a large population in a labor-intensive industry. But we still wanted to be a major player. And so we were never intimidated by the size. And for me, when I sort of first joined the business in the late 1990s, the industry had to evolve. We always had to keep up, keep up at our game. We always had to be ahead of what everyone else was thinking. And I remember first joining, we were literally contracted manufacturers. That's how the industry started off. And over time, the whole industry evolved to become more added value in terms of sourcing management, dealing with design, development, social accountability, and finally sustainability. And we defined ourselves as the world's ethical first sourcing destination, Garments Without Guilt. And this is in 2007. And the history around this really evolved from the fact that with the global quota system ending in 2005, Sri Lanka, the industry was facing two options. We could either compete with the global giants in mass garment manufacturing in India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, or second, to maybe go for a less competitive but high-risk option of rebranding themselves as eco-friendly and labor-friendly producers of quality garments. So we set up this initiative. I wasn't so involved in it at the time, but we set up the initiative. The whole industry got together and we created Garments Without Guilt. And I'm going to show a sort of brief video now that describes what that is. And hopefully it should come on here.
Welcome to an ethical apparel sourcing and manufacturing destination that is not just the world's first, but also one that understands your needs better. Sri Lanka is a land steeped in natural beauty, from sun-kissed beaches to mist-shrouded hill country. But what lies beneath these beautiful surroundings is a contemporary state-of-the-art apparel industry that has a finger on the pulse of their customers and their needs in today's competitive landscape. To top it all, we do this in a way that is ethical, sustainable, and almost unmatched by anyone else in the world. Take a look at our green factories, for instance. In one of our recently renovated factories, Sri Lanka Apparel has managed a reduction in carbon dioxide emissions by a whopping 80%, sulfur dioxide by 71%, nitrous oxides by 92%, achieved an energy saving of 46%, reduced potable water usage by 70%, and documented that almost all the site-generated solid waste is recycled. Sri Lanka Apparel has also bagged a number of prestigious international awards as well. But even more importantly, while apparel sourcing destinations around the world are plagued with controversy, Sri Lanka Apparel manufactures garments without guilt. Sri Lanka's size also guarantees that everything happens quicker here. From sourcing of fabrics, accessories, raw materials, to getting your finished garments to the docks, and even delivery timelines all get shortened. Even our strategic location, where East meets West, means we get your garments onto shelves faster And with the #1 port of South Asia, we are in easy reach of all major world destinations. The Colombo port, in fact, provides integrated air, sea, and road services. Sri Lanka Apparel is also constantly innovating to stay ahead of the curve technologically. Another advantage that Sri Lanka offers is the high level of cooperation that exists between the government and the private sector. It's no wonder then our client partnerships have all lasted over 40 years and include some of the best names in the industry. In other words, Sri Lanka Apparel is not just the best choice for your business, it is also the right choice.
So that video actually was from 2011, 2012. So we were way ahead of the game. And you know, as I say, I think if we had not done what we did then, I don't think we would be a strong player because you know, sustainability became a very clear focal point. It became a differentiator for the industry, and many countries are still catching up. You know, and today we have probably, you know, we have some industry first in terms of the number of carbon neutral factories, lead factories. Many of our factories have invested heavily in solar, and also now related to circular fashion. And, you know, if we look at what's happening in the world today, I mean, as I say, we did it because we felt it was the right thing to do. Obviously, we felt we wanted to differentiate ourselves. But again, we were still entering a field of fast fashion, which was maybe against what we were sort of pushing in terms of being sustainable. But if there's something that's changed now in 2021, I mean, obviously what's happened in the last year, and I think Sandra mentioned some of the points around the fact that the world has changed, COVID, the consumer has changed. People want to be associated with companies that have a purpose. Our customers are really pushing us. While we were giving them what maybe many of them didn't want in terms of being sustainable. Today, it's coming back the other way, and we're able to offer, we're ahead of the game, we're able to offer them to a certain extent, you know, the needs of today to deal with their customers. So if you look at actually, this is 2021, I just found a slide, more recent slide from the apparel industry. And if you look at what our strengths are, I would say, you know, there are about 4 or 5 there that actually link directly to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, all 17 relate to the industry. If you look at the apparel industry today, even though, as I say, we've played our part in Sri Lanka, it is still one of the most polluting industries in the world. And if fashion were a country, I think it would be the world's 4th largest CO2 emitter, and 82% of waste ends up in landfill. So there's still a lot to do. We need to collaborate. We need other industries to participate. You know, there's a lot around data as well. So, you know, it's very relevant to this industry as how you can support. And I think, you know, today Sri Lanka is pushing our sustainability, our ESG game is not over. I think it's evolving every day. I think the focus today in our industry is around transparency, traceability, and circularity. Looking at how we can, you know, produce, you know, and reduce our waste. And I think there's some real opportunities there. But as I say, for me, the focus today was really talking around the history, how we differentiated ourselves, how we got together, collaborated, Garments Without Guilt all those years ago, and how it put us today to where we are to be able to be competitive and to gear ourselves for the future. And I think from a personal point of view, I think what we also saw in our business was that sustainability, there was a business benefit. There was a business benefit in terms of, you know, I think even Sandra mentioned about people wanting to be associated with sustainability data, from a retention, from a cost saving, and we've seen that. So there is a business case around it, because I hear many debates around not having a business case, but I think for us, there was a business case. And today, as I say, moving forward, it's going to be very much part of the game. I honestly feel that if you're not sustainable, you just will not be in business, but we all need to support each other and collaborate. So thank you for the opportunity today to sort of explain the history and how the apparel industry has geared itself to be sustainable. Yeah, I look forward to supporting your industry as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhil Hirdaramani, for your enlightening views. You said you like the terminology ESG, then sustainability. I absolutely love the terminology of saying garment without guilt. I think it tells the whole story in just 3 words. And like you said, you have been way ahead of the curve. If that video was from 2010-11, well, that is super ahead of the curve. Well done. And thank you for supporting the initiative and being a part of today's forum. Thank you very much to Nikhil, Hirdaramani. Up next, we move ahead to 2 inspiring case studies from SLASSCOM member companies itself. Both of them have done so much to advance ESG and are passionate advocates of responsible business. They will have the difficult task of compressing so much into 10 minutes. First, I'm going to bring up Denver de Zylva, Senior Vice President of Virtusa Group. Denver serves as a global head of facilities and sustainability and is responsible for driving ESG and sustainability improvements in alignment to UN SDGs. He is passionate on enabling innovation and creativity by creating sanctuaries with a total occupant experience of workspaces across 50+ locations in 22 countries by enhancing engagement, empowerment, and fulfillment. I'd like to invite Denver to take the digital stage next at this forum. Over to you, Denver.
Thank you very much, Ajmal, for the introduction, which is much more than I think was expected. And first and foremost, I would like to thank Sandra and the SLASSCOM team for inviting me to be a part of this distinguished forum. And I take inspiration from the previous speakers we had from the resident coordinator and from SAP and from Nikhil, so and Sandra herself. And I'd like to sort of take, by the way, if there is an internet connection shortfall, please raise your hands or say so, and we will certainly look at doing our best to sort of attend to that. And I would like to sort of bring up a presentation very quickly, hold on, to take you through the Virtusa journey. Hang on. Yep. Okay, everyone can see the slides, yeah?
Yes, Denver, thanks, perfect.
Thanks. So again, this is Virtusa's presence as very quickly in the interest of time. And I'm just jumping in very into the Virtusa vision. And I just like to look at the last piece of the statement that says, last but not least, a role model for corporate responsibility. So how do we take this role model of corporate responsibility and make it happen? It's easy to say a vision, but we want to make it happen. And towards this, I take the pleasure of using the narrative of ESG and relating it to the 10 UNGC principles, which then goes into the 17 SDGs. Sounds a little bit theoretical, but that's to give you just a perspective. And I would actually very quickly, you'll see the E and the S and the Gs that we have sort of programmed into this slide that was there on the UN goals. So the Virtusa's journey basically began with our client requirements of wanting to ask us and in being compliant to RFPs. That led us to a certification issues where we wanted to showcase to the people that, yes, Virtusa is a committed company. Then we went to the next level of wanting to have us disclosures and ratings, and then the sustainability indices. So this is a very quick view of what drove Virtusa to be what it is. And let's see what this journey has done to us in today's context. So we initially grappled with the terms of corporate responsibility, corporate citizenship, social CSR, sustainability, ESG, and we're trying to decipher. And based on this, I like to take all those and sort of bundle it into the ESG and the highlights that you see. So you would see some of the achievements of reductions in emissions, water, reduction in energy consumption per full-time employee. And this slide is busy, but it's to give you an idea of the areas of measures that we are doing. But whilst we go into all these aspects, you will see that we are actually looking at these efforts and the SDGs that get supported by these efforts. And strangely but cruelly, even though we are in the IT industry, there are many SDGs that is applicable to our industry. Now, I'm using the term ESG, and there are many rating agencies that you would find. I've listed a few, but there is an important piece on the middle sort of right-hand corner of this deck that I'm going to talk to you about. In financial year 20, we had about 15 requests of our clients in RFPs asking us about our ESG performance. In FY21, that went up to 29. And those 29 logos constituted 46% of Virtusa's global revenue. So this is purely to reiterate the fact and emphasize the previous speaker's points that this is real. This is something that you need to do if you're going to be in business. Now, we all know it is real. We are all convinced so, but I think what I'd like to share next is how did we do it? What is the framework? So Virtusa came up with a framework touching upon the SDGs, the guidelines that we sort of look to in terms of our environmental portfolio, health and safety, business continuity, information security, labor standards, and diversity, anti-bribery corruption, corporate governance, and corporate social responsibility. And you would see how we have related the UN SDGs accordingly and the status of where we are. So I thought I'm sharing this framework to give you an idea of what it is. Now, in the interest of time, I'm rushing through this and will always be available to take it in the question and answer sessions, right? So how do we measure? And I go back to the theme of that: if it's not measured, it's not managed. So here are some of the, I'm just focusing on the environmental side of KPIs, right? So you can see the GHG emissions reductions, the energy per capita reductions. These are all global numbers. You'll see the total energy versus renewable energy. All of a sudden, that's coming into discussion. We look at water. Now you'll see complete drops in FY21 purely because we were on, due to the COVID and work from home. Virtusa as a company had invested in the technologies and the infrastructure that by 31st March last year, we were 100% work from home enabled. So that's the kind of investments that enabled us to do that in order to ensure the safety and the well-being of our fellow associates and team members. And you'll see these reduction criteria that have been gone in. Now, the important aspect is no matter what we report, all these numbers were attested and signed off by Ernst & Young as a statement of assurance. And what is important is the ability to have your reports and data rated. So there are multiple rating agencies. You have the Carbon Disclosure Project, you have Morgan Stanley Capital, the MSCI ratings, you have EcoVadis, you have SASB, you have ISS, which is Institutional Shareholder Services, and a plethora of areas that we can actually look into, right? And having said so, I would just like to very quickly use the sort of encompassing area that I would talk to is that anchored on our core visions of our Pearl values. The philosophy is to do more and better with less. And I think there is no better statement that the world needs than to do more and better with less. This is an easy one, but of course, very difficult to do. Leveraging unique industry leading tools, increasing right first time, reducing cycle time, aggressively and measuring, improving quality and reuse at source. By doing so, we effectively reduce the environmental footprints of the products and services we offer to clients. So we allow our engineers to do what they are good at, and we are able to measure and extract the environment, social and governance benefits that those technologies are giving to the end user, and also what is our footprint in terms of developing those tools and services to our clients. So I sort of rushed through the whole program very, very fast. And probably in the question and answer sessions, I'll be happy to take it on. So to the resident coordinator, I like to show you how we have sort of echoed the UN SDGs, the UNGC, the 10 principles, and brought it into ESG, and then dovetailed it into the framework that Virtusa has in terms of improving and consistently improving our ESG score across the spectrum. Thank you very much. That was a very quick run through of what Virtusa has done and how we've achieved it.
Thank you very much, Denver, for that quick brief on your journey in sticking to these policies. Up next, I'm going to introduce our next speaker in the same segment. He is coming up to speak on his passion, which is again sustainability. Following Denver, we have Mr. Charitha Ratwatte Jr., functions as Head of Group Sustainability at Dialog Axiata. Charitha has a BSc in Information Systems from Manchester Metropolitan University, UK, and an MBA from Stanfordshire Graduate School of Business with certificates from the Public Management and Global Management programs. Charitha will actually share the Dialog experience with all of us. Now I'm going to invite Charitha to take stage at this forum next.
Aibon, Wanakam, Assalamu alaikum. Can everybody hear me and can you see my slides?
Yeah, I can hear you
Yes,
and
we
see your
can.
slides. Then, sorry, Charitha,
Okay.
but not your face. Then.
Yeah. Thank you. I won't take a lot of time out of my 10 minutes for pleasantries, but very happy to hear everyone say their bits about this, and look forward to maybe adding any other additional information on during the panel discussion. But I will focus mostly in my slides with a few stories from Dialog's experience in placing ESG at the core of its business. We obviously shareholders, why I put shareholders here on the slide is because many companies in this group will also be shareholder owned, or will have maybe a fairly concentrated group of owners. Owners want profits, owners want dividends. That's perfectly fair. So we have to try to make sure those shareholders and owners are enlightened enough to give us the license as businesses, as managers, to do the kind of work that is needed, as we all have been listening, that work that is needed to make sure that we all have a better world, but also we have to try to integrate it as much as possible into the business that we do for the best possible combination of those approaches. So the next couple of slides I will not take too long on, but the obvious reason I use this in my induction deck for new staff. I won't waste a lot of time on this stuff, but this cartoon also is something that I use when we talk about balancing the shareholder interests with the other. Sometimes these things may not be in KPIs, but things that we also need to care about and argue should be in more KPIs. But as Denver did, I will also, for a second, go back to first principles about Dialog's vision statement, focusing particularly on the fact that Dialog is in the business of providing multisensory connectivity. And we talk about empowering and enriching Sri Lankan lives and enterprises. So the digital inclusion work that I will particularly focus on in these few slides, apart from the core sustainability performance management and the community investments, those connect directly to our business in a few different ways that I will also talk about. What I am talking about, most of the things here, is not CSR. This is integral to the business. one of the major things we have been doing in the last 6 years or so at Dialog has focused on not just making our technologies more applicable to people, but also building paid services out of them. Why paid services? Why are we trying to make people pay to do things, and particularly people like smallholder farmers? Well, first of all, it brings accountability. I have customers who expect a certain level of service and who will vote with their wallets if I don't give them a useful service, because all these things I'm talking about are actually, these are connected to livelihoods. That's the only reason these categories of people will invest money. And so it has to add genuine value to what they do. So mass customization, all the things that we normally think about when it comes to much higher end businesses like the Zaras and the others of the world, we are using them to serve smallholder farmers better, to help them improve their incomes. And these are not limited just to Dialog users. Many of these are available beyond our network as well. So I'll very quickly tell you a story of Kanti, who is one of these users. She may not be the kind of person you expect or you picture when you think of a smallholder farmer in Sri Lanka. But it's very interesting because Kanti had lands. This is a single, this is a female-headed household. Kanti did, had lands, but didn't feel she was in a position to cultivate them herself until the Govimithuru service came along. Ulavatholan in Tamil, it means farmer's friend. But when Govimithuru came along, she decided, you know what, this gives me the confidence to take control of my lands and of my destiny to grow my own crops. So one of the very interesting stories here is that Sri Lanka has its problems. We have a high suicide rate. Out there, maybe in the cities too, people think, oh, it's women who commit suicide. So when people like Kanti need to buy agrochemicals and they go to a shop, they're turned away because obviously she's coming here to buy something to commit suicide. So the Govimithuru voice, the classic voice service, has a set of calls that with a pre-recorded message at the right time for whatever you need to be doing, it tells you what you need to know and to do next. So all Kanti did was she played that clip to the owner of the shop. This is why I need it. This is what I'm doing. Now shut up and give me my agrochemicals. So we are very proud of the effect of this kind of thing that it has for people that even we did not realize were the kinds of users who might be getting more out of this. So this is, to her, it's a rupee a day. She tells us it's worth millions to her, and it has increased her livelihood on a seasonal basis by several lakhs. Another example, this is the brown plant hopper disease. In this season, it really took off in Kurunegala, and we are proud to say that the agriculture instructors from the Department of Agriculture called us first and said, you need to get a message out to the rest of the country to take precautionary measures and be ready if the brown plant hopper pest attacks their crops. So we sent these out, and circled in red is the field of one of our users, Mr. Kaluarachi. In the foreground, I have no idea why, but in the foreground is a field by probably a close relative of his, this being Sri Lanka. That person did not get the message. So the difference, the power of information, we are very proud to be in the information and communication technology industry. This is, to me, the power of information in one picture. So getting this information helped him save several lakhs worth of harvest and has done so for several 100,000 farmers. I hope someday they'll also tell their neighbors and save even more harvest. So I won't take a lot more time, but we are moving on to take our technologies once again and make them more applicable, available, and affordable to people who might not be the people you think about when I say the word greenhouse or protected precision agriculture. We are trying to take it to such groups as well, and it brings a lot of partners together to do this kind of thing. But also, I may be accused of agriculture being my pet subject. So, but also in the case of disability. And this is a fascinating story, actually, because we tried for several years. My theory was we have a supercomputer in our pocket. Can't we use that to replace the 100, 200, 300, 400,000 hearing aids that many people can't afford? We tried to work with the University of Moratuwa on doing these things, but it wasn't really working out. And then we discovered a developer, a Russian developer, with a working solid app. And so we negotiated with him. In this case, we negotiated, we said, we'll give you local add to bill or carrier billing so that you can earn from customers who don't even have credit cards. We will localize it, Sinhala and Tamil. You need to get us a discount because our customers cannot pay the figures that he was charging in Europe and America. So we got a 90 to 95% discount. Actually, it's more now, thanks to exchange rates, for Dialog users on this device that helps people. And of course, there's a spectrum of hearing loss. And so for people, many people actually, they try this out and realize they actually should invest in a more clinically designed hearing aid. The Sustainability Academy, I will not say a lot about, but it is something that we are building to and happy to work with any partner on using to get more of this information and to connect it with people, including we could do it at corporate employee levels to get people more literate in the information they need to know. You'll find more about all of this in the sustainability reports that we have been publishing now for 13 years. So with that, thank you very much. Look forward to any questions at the panel or offline.
Thank you very much, Charitha, for your story. Interesting case studies there, particularly the last one, Petrolex, shows the depth of negotiation and execution abilities that we display purely for the sake of sustainability and the betterment of the country. Thank you so very much for being a part of this amazing journey. We actually come to the conclusion of the first segment of today's event, which is all the speakers have expressed their opinion, voiced out their views on the whole topic. Next, we move on to our next segment, which is the panel discussion consisting of our speakers. First up, I'd like to invite the moderator, Radhika De Silva. Radhika is the Executive Director of UNGC Sri Lanka and is a founder member of the Board of Directors of Global Compact Network Ceylon. Previously, he was the country head, DVNGL Business Assurance Lanka Private Limited. He is a qualified and certified GRI Senior Auditor for Sustainability and Integrity Reporting. He has over 18 years of experience in corporate sustainability and reporting. He completed his university education in USA. He is an alumni of the Prince of Wales Business and Sustainability Leadership, University of Cambridge, UK. He has also led several regional projects for Asia Pacific during his tenure at Holcim and played a key role in many of its global initiatives. As a pioneer in corporate sustainability, in Sri Lanka, his contribution to corporates in Sri Lanka over the years has helped businesses keep pace with global standards in environment and social governance. I'd like to invite Radhika to take stage and bring on the rest of his panelists as I hand over the session officially to Radhika. Take it on from here and bring it to a close towards the end. Radhika, over to you. Radhika, you may need to unmute.
Thank you, Ajmal, and thank you very much for that introduction. And certainly honored to be here to represent the United Nations Global Compact. And I have to say that I truly, I would say that Sandra and the SLASSCOM team, I have to congratulate you for such a bold initiative today, and the bold initiative that you're taking on to make sure that you establish Sri Lanka as a green tech destination. It was only just a month ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, that we had a session at the Global Summit on Sri Lanka being a sustainable manufacturing destination, considering all the companies that have been in sustainability for the past 20+ years in Sri Lanka and still continuing strongly. And now I see that the IT industry is going in the same direction. And we, the UNGC for the Global Compact, is here to power you and to lead you and guide your the IT industry. And I am also pleased to see of 3 speakers in 3 companies, SAP, who has been signatory to UN Global Compact since the inception of UNGC. And so has Dialog, Axiata, and Virtusa. It's fantastic to see these examples and see what their journey has been and where they are today. Congratulations to them as well. So today we just move straight into the questions at this moment, because we have already had many speakers. And I would advise you to please forward your questions to the chat, because we don't have a separate Q&A sort of option here. And I will try to pick as many questions as possible to these speakers that you would have. And may I invite to the open forum the following speakers, please. And certainly we have Chairperson Sandra de Zoysa, Chairperson of SLASSCOM. And we would have Nikhil Hirdaramani from Hirdaramani Group, Tristan Haberley, and Jehan Perinpanayagam. Thank you very much. And yes, I would like to have your questions now as we are ready to start off. I don't see anything coming in yet, but I would like to then pose a question to Sandra once again. Sandra, I know you have already emphasized very much on what your plans are for SLASSCOM and moving into markets very specially to satisfy the markets conditions that we have to satisfy in markets like the Scandinavian, US and Europe. It is an imperative that if we do not measure up to the standards expected, we will not be playing a role in the global market as the IT industry. But I also like to ask you in this situation, what would be the path that you would like some of these members who have not been in ESG to take? What should be the beginning? And what I want is, we don't want fear. We don't want them to think these are companies that have been in the process for 20 years, 10 years, but it doesn't matter. Today could be the beginning to many and still be able to score in these markets. Would you like to shed some thoughts on that?
Yes, Ratika. Firstly, thank you so much for joining us and helping us to, get on the game, as it were, from SLASSCOM, and all of you being present here is very encouraging for us, and I'm sure it's the same for all of our members who are logged in onto this session today. I think if nothing else, we would like for our members to understand where the starting point is for those who have not thought about our planet, our environment, to start thinking about the small things we can do. So personally, I was oblivious to all of this, I must admit, some time back, until very recently, actually. And for me, at Dialog as well, sustainability was Charitha's job, nothing to do with me, right? Nothing to do with any other part of the company. So if anyone said sustainability, it's like point it in his direction, we know nothing, right? So I realized that it cannot be that way. sustainability, like in my own profession, which is managing customers' experience, is everybody's job in the company, in the organization. That's the first thing. So to all of our members that haven't got on this journey, the first thing is realization of what it's all about, realization of the consequences, and realization of the responsibility, the personal responsibility. The fact that this planet that we live in may actually last our lifetime, and we don't know how long this is, but we have to think of the future. We have to start thinking of our children, right? So we may be gone, but for our children, we have to leave a better place. We have to make sure that it's sustainable for our children, right? Because we care, because they are part of us, because they are children. So then you start realizing this responsibility and start applying it in your home, taking personal responsibility to be able to tell people, tell your team, tell your children, tell your husband, wife, spouse, family, your neighbors, right? And start getting them to be more aware, right? So I think doing things differently and being more aware is the first thing. Then the next thing would be that, I think we were talking some days back, Nikhil was talking about, and Denver was talking about this thing of, this is not cheap to do, right? So Nikhil was saying this, this also costs money at a point in time. And then Denver was saying, no, we started our journey by simply measuring what we're doing. Are we carpooling and, various simple little things that anyway we do in life every day, right? And then he said that did not cost money and that doesn't cost money. So yes, moving forward, if we were all to set up green data centers, there is some capital CapEx involvement and requirement, and that can be heavy. But the start of our journey doesn't have to be there. The start of our journey is about little things, small things, things that we do here and now today to be more aware, to start reporting, to start recording. And that's, I think, a simple way to start. Now, in doing so, from SLASSCOM, we're going to make it easy for all our members, our member companies, to support them, to handhold, to get guidance, to give them like a starter pack, to give them all of the awareness sessions that are required for their employees. So that's really the starting point. And let's progress through this journey slowly together. Take it in your stride. But those companies that have actually started on this journey are really, I know, going to come forward. I know Jehan has already come forward and says, put his hand up and says, I want to help, right? So everyone's like that. I know everyone wants to help the others. And we discussed this as well. Nikhil, you remember, it's about this collective, collaborative thing, right? Which from the garment industry. It's together. Together we can make it. So for the little companies, I'd say, don't worry about it. Start on the journey, because everyone else, those who've gone through this journey, those who have learned something, got somewhere, are ever willing to help. And that goes for Hanaa, Assam, and everyone else that's on this call as well.
Thank you very much, Sandra. That was good to hear from you. And the beginning matters at the end of the day. And what is important to understand is, as Hanaa explained to us, and also Denver explained to us, what measures it's managed. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, because the impact comes from that. At the end of the day, sustainability is about stakeholder impact. It is about impact on the planet. And this is key. And that is what is ultimately measured. How did you impact positively is what is really your measure on that. I'd like to, I've got two questions, but before that, I would like to pose a question to Tristan. Tristan, you mentioned that ESG is a top management issue. And I think that is an area that we would like to touch on. We would like, it's not a business of a sustainability manager. It's not driven from the bottom. It has to be a top driven, because it's about governance, and it is the top management's responsibility and the responsibility of the board of directors. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on that, please?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the purview is, being Asia Pacific Japan, there's going to be various topics in different places which are going to be more front of mind for certain leaders. But I think at the end of the day, it comes back to looking at the business as well, the business model and the sustainability. I mean, this word now becomes a little bit interchangeable because it is relevant in so many ways. But it's the sustainability of the business as well. What is the core business? What is the operating model? With the things that are changing, can we continue to keep doing the way that we're doing things? For a license to operate, or what are our competitors doing? Will there be something that changes which puts us at a disadvantage? So with the holistic view of, what do I need to be doing to think about my business tomorrow, in 6 months, in 12 months' time for my shareholders, that's where that leadership sort of view is coming in. And the ESG topic is quite broad, right? But it's going to require that sort of focus. And I think that's what we're seeing from that leadership sort of conversation. So yeah, in essence, it is elevating beyond the sort of sustainability topic, the CSR topic, because it is ESG is covering all topics. And I think something that probably is quite impactful is the financing elements as well. If we're seeing potentially there's finance involved in business as well, are there conditions tied to that finance? And some observations are that more often not there is or there will be. And that's a major motivator for reviewing in more detail as well.
Thank you so much. Yes. At the end of the day, you got to understand that top management is looking for value. Sustainability has to deliver value. Otherwise, it does not make sense. It has to be, that's the only way the business can grow. It has to deliver value in terms of innovation. I mean, there are the 6 capitals. If you look at the IIRC's capital structure for, or the framework for reporting, the new accounting standards that were launched sometime, I would say, in the last 10 years, it captures the performance. You have to report on the performance of the 6 capitals, and that matters to the stakeholders. So I'm going to go, let me just take on the first question that has come up, and that is from Shanaka Fernando. Of the multiple SDGs, which should RIT and BPM industry focus on and prioritize? Is this something that maybe Jehan, you could possibly take this question on, please?
Sure. I think as several of the speakers spoke, it's a very broad area, but also as Sandra said, we can choose certain simple steps and start the journey. What is important is to start the journey. So I think the priorities for us are gender, our workforce, is our biggest strength, our biggest asset. And that is something that we can look at: health and safety, gender diversity, people with disability. That could be one priority. The second is climate. So I would think those would be the places to start.
Yes, we see this trend all around the world, climate and gender being 2 most important in the sustainability agenda today, because these 2 are critical and they have reached certain standards that we cannot ignore. So thank you so much. Yes, that's, I hope we have answered that question for you. And there's yet another one, which is, how do you build a business case for sustainability? To those who are yet to understand the importance, and let me read out the second question by the same person. Is there a framework for a company starting their sustainability journey? If I may answer that second one first, and maybe you can elaborate. If you look at the examples here today, all of these, if not the 3 members or signatories for UNGC or Global Compact, they have started with the 10 principles of Global Compact that covers human rights, labor, environmental sustainability, and anti-corruption. And these are the 4 areas that you focus on. However, I would like to pass this question to you as well. May I ask maybe Charitha to answer this question?
Yeah, I would suggest that, first of all, the company leadership team members need to take a long hard look at yourselves, your vision, what you aspire to, because and then look at the 10 principles, or nowadays maybe just straight out look at the SDGs and pick the ones that resonate the most with you, because those are the ones that you will be most motivated to focus on. And they may also resonate with you because those are the ones that you directly as a business also have the most opportunity to influence. So, I mean, if you look at the at Dialogs and our parent, the Axiata Group's interests, I mean, the Axiata Group's actually the simplest to look at, because it has 2 SDGs prioritized across all operating companies. One is education, because knowledge workers, knowledge economies, that is what we want to create across our footprint, particularly considering many of the other operating companies are in places where there's a lot more human development to be done opportunity-wise. And the other is climate. So companies, focus, passions, something that we have a huge opportunity as an organization to actually improve on, because energy is our biggest footprint as most of the companies that we are. So that would be one way to look at it, to really help you focus. But as Ratika said, the 10 principles are another way to look at it. And the initial steps, if you look at even the way, if you look at I flashed a slide with the Dialog sustainability reports. Those first reports were not seeking certification, let alone external certification or anything like that. We just started looking, okay, let's pick a good framework, let's assess ourselves against it and see where we have the most work to be done. So that might, comparing, there are now very mature frameworks out there, mapping yourself, benchmarking against them and against industry peers, and even within the country or internationally peers outside your industry, would be very helpful to help you figure out, okay, now I understand what they're doing and why. What about ourselves?
Thank you, Charitha. That was good. And let us hear from Nikhil as well. Nikhil, I would like to hear from you, because you may be, I'm not sure whether Hirdaramani was not a signatory to Global Compact many years ago, but I know you are going to be very soon. However, what was the format that you used? And that might be interesting to see. Hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way different hats, but I think, you know, a couple of years ago, I was at the UN and I picked up a book at the UN. It was actually a kid's book on the SDGs, right? Very, very simple, very easy to understand, because sometimes that can be the challenge, right? And I bought this book back and I shared it with my team. And you know, again, in our business, you know, I think as Charitha was saying, it's really around understanding what's applicable to you. But it's also about, you've got to start somewhere, right? You've got to start creating this awareness somewhere. And it may be a good idea to, you know, even for SLASSCOM to work on, you know, look at the SDGs that are relevant and do some you know, deep diving into them to create this awareness, because everyone has to understand where they are. I mean, I think you're also beginning to see now that, you know, we're also beginning to see, I mean, my 5-year-old daughter came back from school the other day, was telling me all around this whole, you know, talking about sustainability. So there's also a bit of a push now from the younger generations, as we've talked around, right? So they're going to have, you know, it's important to engage. We've talked around this whole element of collaboration. If you're going to start, you know, taking on ESG within your organization, it's got to be a group effort, right? Yeah, it's got to come from the top, but you've got to engage everyone else. So, you know, have that dialogue, have that communication. Look at, start just creating awareness on the SDGs. It would be my sort of thoughts around this, and then, you know, start then figuring out how you want to measure. But I think basic awareness, if you haven't started anywhere, is a way to start.
Thank you, Nikhil. Tristan, could we have a comment from you as well on this, for this question?
Yeah, I would probably extend on the same comments and say start somewhere, right? Something that's relevant, that's meaningful. You take into consideration what's going to stick or be relevant in the organization and build from that, because you need some success stories or something that resonates, and then you get that traction, and then the journey can proceed. But it hasn't already started. So I think that's probably a great place to start.
So thank you very much.
Sorry, Ratika, if I may add one more thing. The thing is, 17 SDGs, too much to start with, but should I narrow down? I think one of the important things is they are highly interconnected. If it's okay to pick one or two, because you are automatically, adding value on many others. So you should not worry about narrowing it down.
I think that was a very good point. There are 17 SDGs. It's not easy for all companies or most companies to satisfy all equally. That's not going to happen. So what is important is that you prioritize, you decide what is relevant to you, and then you start working on that, and maybe one or two. Now, I think SLASSCOM, I think Jehan very clearly indicated that the two most important is climate and also gender. So whatever is linked to those two might be the ones that you might want to focus on initially, and that would help you to actually gain greater value, because as an industry, you have decided on your focus. And I think that's important. And I think that's the way to go. And also, we don't have any further questions. So I would like to thank you, and I would like to hand over to Ajmal.
Thank you.
If I may just add one more point.
Yes.
Yeah. I think lots of companies struggle with where do I start with? Yes, we believe it. And I think the simple thing is measuring, right? So for all IT companies, you have an energy bill. All of you are located in some facilities or office in some shape or form. Your facilities energy cost is probably about 15 to 20% of your entire facilities footprint cost. Now, if you take an effort to see what can you do to minimize that, right? That's direct impact on your P&L. Plus, it is a benefit there. So start with the baby steps. Can you have a company policy that you will not buy high energy incandescent lighting? You will switch to LED lighting. You will have a company policy that will say that you will buy energy efficient air conditioning. Now you watch and measure your electricity consumption coming down, right? That is one step in that direction. Next is your maintenance, a zero plastics policy from your suppliers, from the people that are going, and automatically start measuring the waste and other things that you're doing differently, right? And those baby steps are the things that really drove Virtusa to doing the big things, because everybody likes to feel recognized and valued in what they're doing. And that's why the team that I was with with the facilities and sustainability, we started measuring it. Then rainwater harvesting, or having RO water plants without having bottled water being brought into the company, and etc. So those were a few points I thought would be great for companies just thinking, where do I start? Right. Sorry.
Thank you, Denver. Thank you very much.
Can I just add one more thing as well? I mean, in the next month and a half, we're having, obviously, COP26 is happening as well, and there's going to be, all the leaders coming together and everything. So it's going to be there's going to be a lot of hype, and I think it's about also understanding where the support is. There's a lot of ESG funds are everyone's been investing in ESG in the last year and a half, right? So there's a lot of funding out there. I think there's going to be a lot of government, the government's all going to get together. So it's around, again, creating awareness, understanding what's going on in the global marketplace around these topics. And COP26 in a couple of weeks' time is going to be one of those events that's going to bring a lot of focus around climate.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you, Denver. I just want to add one more point to this, is that Sandra at the beginning mentioned that the markets that we are trying to cater to have already a green regulation that has been introduced. And I think that's important to consider, because that's something that's going to be material to you. Because if you don't, it's a risk. You've got to identify your risk. You've got to understand the materiality, and then maybe understand what is that positive contribution that we as an industry can make to satisfy that regulation. That might be a good starting point, and that is to do with climate. As you can see, it's to do with green regulation. So I think that might also be a point to consider as a start for companies that are here to start ESG process. Thank you very much for a very interesting discussion and insightful sessions that I've been able to hear from all these eminent speakers. Thank you to SLASSCOM for inviting me on to represent UN Global Compact here. And let me please hand over to Ajmal for the rest of the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ratika. Unfortunately, Ajmal had to leave us, so I'll take it on from here. It would be nice if we could end with a concrete step. So if I could just be so bold as to ask you if we could all have our cameras on, and Rochelle from corporate office will just load a slide which we could all hopefully read together, because I would like this day to be remembered as a day when this industry came together, made a commitment to take concrete action. So we have friends from corporate office and from the media as well. So it will be a great statement of purpose if we could all maybe switch on our cameras so that we can all, this moment could be captured, hopefully for posterity. And if we could read this together, please join me. We pledge as the leaders of Sri Lanka's IT BPM industry,
learning,
prioritizing environmental, social, and governance in our companies and our spheres of influence. We also commit to work together to build Sri Lanka's industry as a leading sustainable IT destination recognized globally. Thank you very, very much. May this day be long remembered. A big thank you to you all. We had several of the leadership today with us. We're so grateful to you for your time. Her Excellency Hanaa Singer, we learned of the SDG framework that gives us a structure. What is not measured is not managed. And finally, the wholehearted support and endorsement of the UN. Thank you very much, Hanaa. We are so encouraged and enthused to hear you. From Tristan, we learned that ESG is top of mind and how sustainability is an integral part of business, how it could be a win-win, and the resounding refrain he shared of zero inequality, zero emissions, help the world run better whilst improving lives. Thank you very much, Tristan. Sandra, thank you for laying out your vision of a green IT destination and the compelling business imperative, and laying out the how we can get about it. Then we heard the inspiring story of garments without guilt that helped an industry, which was not the biggest, become one of the biggest global success stories, and how there's a balance and a business case, and how if you are not sustainable, you can't be in business. Thank you very, very much, Nikhil. We are very grateful. Next, we heard two of our own biggest homegrown success stories from Virtusa and Dialog. Thank you very much, Denver and Charitha, for your personal commitment and showing the way to us. Some striking messages. Thank you very much, Ratika, for leading the panel and for your support. A big thank you to Azam from the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, who has been such a support and a help to us every step of the way. To Rochelle and David from the corporate office. And thank you all very much for your presence. We are deeply encouraged and very, very excited for what the future holds for Sri Lanka, the green IT destination. Thank you.
Thank you.